Raz.
Yeah, all good. So testing, testing, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2, testing. Check, check, check. Check. Do a sound check. Okay, all good? Yeah, all good? Fine. So, let's catch up briefly, if we can.
Still, I don't understand.
What will happen from this?
What are we here for? Okay, briefly, the purpose of this is to create an open discussion forum where we are looking for what is the common factor between different perspectives of science related to health.
Common factor. Simply, most of people don't understand.
Perfect. Exactly. That's it. I know. I agree with you. And therefore, just in the context, one other simple thing. What you mentioned now about what came up during this Congress in Bulgaria about how quantum physics has now moved forward and it's coming closer to be able to be applied to biology. This is, I think, where we will be headed at the end of it. They will have their discussion about his background in the microbiology and the microorganisms and how they shift and evolved over how periods of time of eons. He's then going to be picking up from that perspective and saying how it is applying to genes and epigenetics and the impact. Then you will be discussing about the common factor of water and the biofilm, and then eventually you can mention that you've just been to a conference. In fact, what we are here to do is to inform common people. Because the scientific community, as you know very well, and you have said it to me on numerous occasions, first and foremost, it's still at least 90% controlled by Newtonian perspective of life, and secondly, it's a closed shop, closed circuits. The general public does not have access to this type of information that we already know a lot about. So the purpose of this is to film it and have it streamed internationally and make it accessible, and then from there build interest in what we are talking about so that we can have monthly publications and whatever is required for the general public to build a new audience. This is my understanding. Is that fair enough?
How it will work, I don't know.
Yeah, we are working toward this. We are working toward this.
Another thing, Vladimir Leonidovich will speak in Russian, and
Yes.
then you can discuss in English.
Yes.
So
Yeah, he speaks in Russian and then.
You help.
yeah, I will help with translation to you.
Yeah, translation to me is, but then when we are talking, it will be, of course, in English, and that how it will need to be.
You are doing simultaneous
Yes.
translation,
Yes. I'm doing the
Yeah.
Where do you? No, but you sit near Constantine.
He will sit next to me. She will sit next to me, and you will be here. So, is it an idea to shift this slightly to the left, or on an angle? Okay. Are you okay there? You okay there? Okay, we're here. Okay. Yes. Okay. I thought we were starting at 6 o'clock. Health is health. It should be, it's been spelled wrong.
волшебная табличка, значит, что за 5 минут надо уже иметь как наоборот. Ну, я переверну. Ну, за это месяц.
Any problem, something awkward. So when Natalia's
Yes.
Камера готова? Макс, камера готова? Окей. Здравствуйте, дорогие друзья. Мы рады приветствовать вас на нашем первом открытом столе.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our first roundtable devoted to the role of science in human health.
И сегодня мы имеем честь
And today we
приветствовать
have the
здесь
honor to greet here
профессоров,
professors,
исследователей,
researchers,
ученых,
and scientists
которые покажут разные аспекты.
who will cover
И через их
various
диалог
aspects
мы
of the
сможем найти
issue.
общий
And
фактор,
through our open dialogue,
объединяющий
we will try
науку
to
и
find the
здоровье.
common factor which unites
Не случайно, что мы
science
присутствуем в
and
ITMO
health.
и
And it's not by
открываем
chance that we're
данную
doing this
дискуссию именно
in
здесь,
ITMO
потому что ITMO
University,
является
because
на данный
ITMO
момент одним из ведущих
today
институтов
is one of
России,
the leading educational establishment
который
and research centers
предлагает инновационные подходы, и
in the
мы
world
рады
who
предложить
offers
широкой
innovative
публике
approach.
возможность подключиться к этому диалогу,
And we also
который в
offer a
результате
unique opportunity to join this
найти
discussion and
новые
this open
подходы
dialogue,
к актуальным
which we
вопросам
hope will help find new approaches to this very important issue of the
Сейчас
new millennium.
мы сделаем небольшую презентацию
Now
наших спикеров.
we will make a short presentation of
И
our
после
today
этого,
presenters,
первая часть
and after that
будет посвящена более
the
классическому
first
подходу
part will be devoted to a more classical approach to the issue,
адаптации.
the evolution, adaptation,
После этого,
and health. And after that,
после небольшого перерыва,
after a short break, we will
иной точки зрения,
go into
у каждого из
an
вас
alternative
будет
approach, and each of you will have an opportunity to ask their questions and to get direct answers
наших профессоров.
from our professors.
Так, первым сегодня будет открывать наш круглый стол Александр Олегович Павлов.
Alexander Olegovich Pavlov will open the discussion today.
Закончил химический факультет в БГУ в
He
то время еще.
graduated from the Faculty of Chemistry
На данный момент
of St. Petersburg University in 1987. Now he is head of the Laboratory of Molecular Biology
в Институте эволюционной физиологии и
in the
биохимии
Institute of
имени Тихого.
Evolutional Physiology.
На данный момент основными научными
At
интересами
present, his main interest lies in
действия гормональных регуляторов,
molecular mechanisms of
модели сахарного диабета и разработка
hormone action,
инновационных подходов для его
diabetes,
лечения,
its
разработка
diagnosis, and
и
various
исследования
approaches for treatment, and also treating the gene and protein primary structures.
С другой стороны,
On the other hand,
справа вы можете видеть
we have the
Владимира
pleasure
Леонидовича Воейкова.
to have here Vladimir Leonidovich Voeikov,
Закончил в 1968 году
graduated from the Faculty of Biology of Moscow State University in 1968,
специальности биофизика.
specializing in biophysics. At present, he is the head of the
Заведующим кафедрой биоорганической
chair of
химии,
biochemistry and organic chemistry of the Faculty of Biology of Moscow State University. So he is the assistant head of the chair.
Основными областями
His scientific, his research interests lie in the physical and chemical
водных растворов,
background of biological activity,
и их роль в биоэнергетике.
and he also researches free radicals and their role in various aspects.
Леонид Алексеевич Носкин
Leonid Alexeyevich Noskin is on the left of me.
в 1965 году он окончил
He graduated from the Medical Institute of Odessa in 1965.
На данный момент он
He
является
qualified as a doctor, and now he is head of the Laboratory of Medical Biophysics.
Константинова. Основными областями научной
His main
на данный момент
research interests lie in development of the new biophysical methods for
вопросы
evaluating human health,
и
adaptogenesis, and the concept of synology.
и справа от меня
And on my right, we can see Konstantin Pavlidis.
Павлидис.
85. Yeah.
В 1985 году он получил степень по биофизике в Сиднейском университете.
He got the PhD in biophysics, and he is now head of the
расположенная в Лондоне.
Center for Research
Основными областями научных интересов являются
in London, and his main research interest lies also in the field of adaptation, changing conscious state, young psychology, correction, and reproduction techniques.
Итак, сейчас
So
мы обсудим 4
now we will
основных тематики.
discuss four main issues. We will start with microorganisms,
И в целом того, что
creation of
называется
life,
биоточка, то есть о том,
and
как
microbiota
мы зарождались
of
от
human beings.
первичных процессов
We will speak of how
на первичном
humankind
стадии до нынешнего
developed
времени,
from its
как
primary
человеческая
state
Земля
and up to the
влияла
present day,
и упорно, в том числе и
and
на нас
how
до сих пор.
various forms of life appeared. Then we will look at a human being as a complex system which is in the process of constant adaptation. After that, after the break, we will be talking about water as the basis for life and its features, and water as the basis for life and the basic environment where all evolution processes take place. And after that, we will be dealing with the quantum integral medicine and the health as emotional and physical phenomenon.
Итак, сейчас Александр Олегович.
So may I give the floor to Alexander Olegovich. Dear colleagues, I would like to make you relax a bit, do not feel stressed. Of course, there won't be any battle between, so to say, traditional and alternative medicine, because all this makes up a single field. We all deal with health, and there is more in common than difference between these two approaches. As it has already been mentioned, we will be talking of how life appeared on Earth and how the most important systems that every person has, how they developed those systems that make you be here, understand me, etc. The signal systems. Of course, you know much about signal systems in terms of your own fields of research. The thing is that for any cell to receive signals, it has to have a certain apparatus. The signals may be quite different. They may be special, specific, highly specific. Here I deal with hormones and hormone-like compounds and many factors. Or they can be quite common, like ions, protons, etc. So, in the very beginning of evolution, at the dawn of evolution, when the first proteolytic cell appeared, the signal system was already there. It has three main components. Sensory component, which receives the signal. These are the receptory proteins. Then it is the transformation of the signal, transduction of the signal. Special proteins take part in this process. The essence of their work is that they bind nucleotides, and they may be active or non-active. What do? They transmit or transcribe the signal from the language of the cell itself, or the cells around the body in the environment, into the language of the cell within the body. And then there is the amplifier of the signal. Hormone is just one single unit, and we need a big unit made up of many molecules. And the amplifier, the role of the amplifier is performed by enzymes, proteins, which can generate a lot of secondary, intermediary means, which launch the processes. This is a system which exists, and this system exists with the bacteria. Bacteria have many archetypes of the systems. During the last 10 to 15 years, we have realized that the variety of signal systems within bacteria is much higher than the signal systems within, for example, human beings. Why is it so? There are many explanations and a lot of opinions. Maybe at a certain point during the evolution, the systems, some systems of connection were broken and remained with bacteria and did not evolve with the upper beings. Maybe there was some kind of selection. Anyhow, this is a field for discussion, and I would be ready to answer the questions if there are any. It's also surprising that the signal blocks themselves within animals of various levels are sometimes so similar that they're interchangeable. Why is it so? Why is it so conservative as mechanism? It allows us to communicate with animals. This is a serious issue. For example, you're all here and each of you thinks that he is Homo sapiens. But within yourself, you have 10 and 13th order of cells and 10 and 14th order of bacteria. Most of those bacteria make up our microflora, which is positive. So we are nothing else but a certain object for a colony of bacteria. And all our systems are nothing but a mechanism for existence of this colony of bacteria, who, in their turn, interact with every cell of yours. So this is a paradox. And it's not only about human beings, that we have a community which can communicate with each other only via signal systems. So this is like a global communication. And mechanisms of adaptation, mechanisms of evolution are very complicated. When we do not look at it as a movement step by step from one system to another, but it's when we look at it as at a certain complex. So I will end my introduction here. Maybe you have some questions, and I think that I have provoked some questions already. If I have made you think of some questions, I will be happy to answer them. Well, where does the difference lie between traditional and alternative medicine? The thing is that every field of science, take biology for example, there is a certain opinion of some process, and this opinion, it becomes deeper and deeper. This theory, this explanation becomes deeper and deeper, goes on a more and more sophisticated level. For example, if we speak about signals, everything was regarded as something quite easy, a signal system, and then they saw the chemical background of the signals and thought about the interaction of components, and various explanations appeared in terms of biophysics. This is something that we discussed before our round table. So there is a certain approach connected with biophysics. If we go further into biophysics, then there is a possibility of mathematical modeling. So we can speak about the phenomenon of physical, mathematic, and multidisciplinary explanation, and thus we are going further deeper to the essence of the issue, and it's here that we consider two sides of the problem. On the one hand, can we ever understand it fully and every detail? And intuitively we try to see the ways of further development, and this is non-traditional, and the traditional approach is basing on the facts that we already have. So on the one hand, the scientists can see the real state of things, and they base their developments on what they already have, but the intuitive approach makes them go deeper and deeper, and in the end of the day, make them go into a deeper research. So non-traditional or alternative is something that we do not know yet. Well, it depends on what we base on. Alternative, is it pseudo-scientific? So sometimes non-traditional or alternative is understood as pseudo-scientific. We do not regard it as such. We are talking about an alternative way, as of some attempts to try and find some new ways. Like, for example, the biophysical approach does not exist yet, but we're trying to grope for it. So alternative means guesses, intuition, but when we get the first real proofs, it's traditional science that takes advantage of them and works them out. So we're not about pseudoscience. May I just come in here with my opinion? The thing is that science builds and develops only when we take some part of reality, simplify it in some way, discard the factors that we do not see as important for our modeling, and then we build up the model. Science is not possible without modeling. Otherwise, we cannot understand all the levels. There are people who see things very deeply. There are some models. And a model may work in a great way. And now we have a feeling that this model is reality itself. But in any case, it is limited because it is limited by its construction itself, by the construction of a model. And some phenomena that we study somehow contradict this model. So, for example, there is psychology which does not work or sometimes interfere with the classical work. For example, take astronomy. There is evolution of the view of the Earth. The Earth was flat. If we go outdoors, we will see that Earth is flat. Then we remember various books about the firm Earth and the firmament and the theory of flat Earth. But then it appeared that it was not so, that Earth is a ball, and that the sun rises, the sun sets down. But how do I understand that? We understand it because we see how the sun rises and sets down. It is because the Earth is round. But we cannot see it. So this is a collision between the facts that we can see. Is it good or bad that Earth is flat? What do we do if we start thinking of the Earth as flat or as a round? And then finally there is heretic model starting with Copernicus, heliocentric model, as we all know from the history of science, with the contradiction and opposition from the administrative resource, that this new idea of the Earth not being flat made its difficult way through. I am not an astronomer, but we know that there are calculations of Sputnik trajectories. The mathematicians have developed all those models. This also works. So at present, some new things can seem pseudoscience because we all learned something already. What is pseudoscience? What is alternative? It's something that goes beyond the framework of traditional approach. But when we gather new facts, when we see new phenomena, then the new approach becomes adopted, and then it stagnates, and then something new appears and contradicts the older view, which seemed to be quite natural. Science cannot be dogmatic on the one hand, and on the other hand, it cannot be absolute and immovable. So there is always a balance between something traditional and something new. May I also come in here within this context? There are lots of examples like that. Aromatherapy, for example, using spices. You all know that it is a pleasant thing, but there are many also who speak about them being useful, the spices being quite useful, spices, flavors, odors. But before the scientists understood the mechanism of its work, this was something like alternative knowledge, which was not based on any biological mechanism. And only now, and it's a very important result, we know that many of rather simple chemical compounds, for example, we go into the forest and breathe in the air. It appears that all these compounds have quite evident targets within our cells, our receptors in the cells. There is a whole family of receptors who bind those compounds with bacteria in a very specific way, and after that the gene expression changes. Of course, you all know what is gene expression. So it appeared that even if you just come into the kitchen and breathe in a spicy flavor, your metabolism changes and the whole hormone background changes. So it has a sound molecular and biological foundation. And this field of science comes up on a new level, and the traditional views of those factors receive a sound scientific explanation. And this is already traditional science. So we understand that interaction with any chemical sound produces an impact. All those factors have a lot of regulating activities. I can't say that you have to biologically pure, but you have to be aware of the environment where you are, because it affects your emotions, your cognition, and the whole of your life. Just another example from the same field. And there are many, many more of examples like those. But what is pseudoscience? It's about homeopathy, for example, when we dilute and dilute and dilute, and we come down to a situation when in this cup there is not a single molecule, and we just drink pure water and we become healed. But this is something that cannot be proved. But if we speculate and we say that there must be some substances that influence the health, you can go on like that, but you have to see the boundary between pseudoscience and alternative science. Sometimes people do not see it. Homeopathy does not correspond to the view that there is no action at a distance. We can discuss this if you wish, because I work with the people who do a serious research in homeopathy, and they show that a solution which we get after a lot of dilatory actions in their physical and chemical properties are quite different from the water that was used in the beginning. This was reproduced by many experiments and in many laboratories, but as up to the present day, and I am a biologist, I have been in biology for 50 years, but as in biology, the mechanism of regulation used to be the principle of interaction like key and lock, that is immediate contact. From this point of view, we cannot say that this works, that it cannot be explained, that if there is no substance, no solute in the solution, how does it work? It's difficult to explain. Well, there is an analogy. To open a car, you can put the key into the lock or you can just press the button. So the analogy is that you do not put the key into the lock, but it will open. And only our car, not any other car. So it is physics, the physics that in our biological, biochemical paradigm, unfortunately, it does not belong to this paradigm. This is some other kind of physics. You said something about something divine and given by God. What do you mean by that? I have been working at the Institute for Evolutionary Biochemistry. So an institute which has the word evolution in its name. And of course, I spoke to a lot of specialists in the field, and many of them think that the more we study evolution, the less we believe in it, at least in the context we used to have it. As for this topic which I dealt with, really we have an impression that nature created all the options that could be used. Like, for example, I will not give you difficult names, although it's hard to do without them. We all work in the similar fields. There is an enzyme, very well known, which is the final stage in the signal systems. So if we take, for example, mycobacteria, we have a common interest in that, then this bacterium has 21 archetypes, not types, but archetypes of building the system. And only one of these archetypes was then used with vertebral mammals and animals. This all goes for all kinds of bacteria. Sometimes we can hear contradictions. Let's take signal systems of bacteria, of mammals, and they are somewhat different. And we can see the differences. But let us not forget that our cells, nucleotic cells, they are a symbiont. This is the mass of organella and the mitochondria. They're all common. And then the nucleus is also a symbiont. We will not speak about the organella here, but the thing is that this symbiosis and symbiotic communities started to adapt their signal systems to each other. And our very sophisticated signal system is just a combination of the signal systems of bacteria, for example. This is all evolution. This is all evolution. Now, what about the divine origin? If we start looking at molecular mechanisms of quite elementary reactions, of the simplest reactions, we can see, we just have a queer feeling, because the number of evolutionary changes, the number of micro reactions is so high, and they are so closely fit that it's really hard to believe that they are random and that they all appeared by chance. For example, when we reveal a mechanism, we think that there are some simpler and analogous mechanisms, but most often this is artificial. And there are so many options and so many variations that we can trace a chain of any evolutionary changes. We have a field of changes, and you can always find an underlying mechanism. But if you make a blind experiment, so to say, then there is a problem and a challenge. For example, in the experiment, when some people say if the experiment has to lead to improvement of certain functions, they will improve. And then when you ask why they will improve, then there is a problem. So if you have a certain set of data, you just start to adapt to this. So if we speak about the divine origin and divine roots, it's a queer field, but this is science. We can go very far from that topic, and there are various views on the issue when we speak about the initial substance. But, well, shall we remember the theory about viruses that were the basis of everything? This cannot be true because they need some environment for them, so they cannot have been the first. The more you study elementary things, the more sophisticated you see them. Bacteria, they are really sophisticated. We work with the Mechnikov Institute, and they say that bacteria are the most important elements, and that all our health lies in bacteria. Just one example here. For example, the classical example, the cholera vibrio gets into the body. It has a very specific signal system. What does it do when it gets into the body? By signal only, it destroys epithelium cells, and it destroys the system of communication between the bacteria in our microflora. The main action of the bacteria is that they destroy the system of communication, and then it's proliferation. If the three signals reach the target, when they break the microflora and start proliferating, then the disease starts, the infection starts. So all these interactions are very important. And one more thing about traditional and alternative medicine. We had a conference here in this very room where we had the doctors representing the traditional approach, and there was a postgraduate student from an alternative medicine college in San Diego. So she is a PhD student, and she came here because she was interested in what we do here, and she was talking on the problems of diabetes, for example, and was talking about how the Chinese treat it. And they were our doctors here, traditional approach. And Chinese medicine, she said, takes both alternative medicine and traditional, so to say, whereas our doctors do not accept anything from Chinese medicine or homeopathy. They stick to the traditional view only. So maybe if a person deals with something, they find it difficult to switch over to another approach, like a divine origin of something or something different. I think it's sometimes about fear, or sometimes that's unwillingness to go further. If we speak about Chinese and Oriental medicine, I can say that non-contact massage is a fact. And we know that further to a massage without contact, people were healed, and that's what I witnessed. There are some biophysical laws which underlie the mechanism. Their low energetic fields are affecting the body and healing, leading to the homeostasis change. This is biophysics, isn't it? And the thing is that this lady is a physicist, and she started going into it because she was a physicist and she understood the mechanisms, and I liked it a lot. The boundary is very thin. One more example. When there was a healer from Armenia, said that she could heal everyone. The thing is that 85% people in Armenia were suffered of the bites of vipers. And the thing is that she healed those who were bitten by vipers, and she could not heal those who were bitten by the snakes that were not poisonous. Thanks a lot for the questions. Thanks a lot for your presentation, and now we will go on to our next presentation. Who would be talking about sonology and how it all started.
Дорогие коллеги. Переводчик глуховат, извините, можно погромче для глухих. Дорогие коллеги, о чем я буду говорить, тут написано, а я скажу, о чем я не буду говорить.
So I will not be talking about what is written there. I will not be talking about traditional and non-traditional science, because I think that sometimes it's for those who have nothing to do, whether it to deal with the issue, whether it's traditional or alternative. But I will be speaking of some concepts that failed. First of all, what is sonology? I think that looking at the term, you can understand that san is san is health and logics is organization. So this is about health, isn't it? When did it appear? I must say that it was Hippocrates who introduced the term. Moreover, Hippocrates had two concepts. Sanology, which is a science about health, and medicine was about the ways of treatment. And it had not health. And the World Health Organization still says that health is complete physical, social, and psychological well-being, which allows a person not to be ill. But I think that it is as silly as it can be. First of all, well-being, physical, this is a term that is poorly determinable. How can we say if a person, whether a person has well-being or not? The other thing is, why is it that we are not ill? Hippocrates said that a person may be ill only with a disease which they are able to have. So he thought that not every person will be ill with every single disease. He had his psychotypes, that there can be constitutional types, neuromuscular types, and it has been shown that a choleric will have different diseases from a phlegmatic personality, and vice versa. So some functions of health are determined, they determine the state of predetermined diseases. So it is not very wise to connect being healthy and being ill. There is a certain pathological trace within the organism, but for an organism to perceive it, it has to have a certain predisposition to this. So we will be talking about the predictability and whether we have a certain methodology which will help us foresee or predict certain parameters. May I remind you that medicine has three types of diagnosis. The first one is ethio-pathoharmonic. My colleague loves this method. It's a wonderful method. It, as you know from the beginning, that there is a certain marker. For example, a marker of diabetes. But when you do not have a high glucometric index, then it may be that you do not have diabetes. Sometimes if you have high blood pressure, then you have hypertonic. Atherosclerosis usually is caused by cholesterol level, but 70% of the disease is without the cholesterol. So this is all about markers. So when the disease is traced, then you can see all the presence of all those markers, but it's better to see it in the pathological, the postmortem investigation. The second type of diagnosis is when the medicine says, why shall we wait? Why shall we wait till the level is 15 units higher than the norm? Let's say that 7, for example, is already a factor of danger. A factor of danger, the factor of well-being, a factor of ill-being. This pre-morbid diagnosis does not differ from the first type, but this one is just more sensitive because it reacts to lower levels of certain ingredients. Of course, this was a quality change with the second type of diagnosis, and medicine got involved in that, leading it to quite a silly level. For example, I deal a lot with diagnosis with the computer tomography. If maybe you do not know it, but the sensibility of these methods is such that 60% are pseudo-positive. That is, for example, they found some point in your spine and they can see this point. Functionally, it is not determinable. After that, you will live long life and die from a different thing, or die from this thing. Or they see some tissue problem. What is the function? Why is it there? What will it bring to? And so they say, let us look at it. 18 years ago, when we started talking about that, about this tomography, I found a certain inflammation of thyroid. So what? They have been watching it for 18 years. I don't know who has been watching what. I am not against premorbid diagnosis. But what do they lack? They lack determining the function of what has been found and detected to say, yes, this is the state that corresponds to a functional disease. So what do we have after that? Even if you have all the symptoms, oh yes, now we also have the genetic diagnostics. I will not speak about polygenes here. 99.9% of genes are polygenes, but even within them they have different states. Heterozygous state is not predictable. So if we speak about the strictly determined concepts like Alzheimer, Parkinson's disease within the families that do not have it in the history, they are genetically free. And if these diseases appear in the families where they had them, they are predetermined. But we have to say that there are only 4% of the diseases of Alzheimer which are predetermined. All the others are spontaneous. I have to deal with the diseases as the head of the department. So we have come to the point where we understand that there are some predetermined states within a human being, and these states are determined by just one single thing: adaptation. For any state of disease, even during a heart attack and difficult heart attack, there are some people who adapted to them and nothing happened to them, and there are people who have not adapted to them and something bad happened to them. And medicine does understand it. Today you are told, buy this medicine, this is adaptogen, only do not drink alcohol and do safe sex, practice safe sex, and everything will be okay. And also do not work, do some jogging, and everything will be finer than ever. This is all great, but does it refer to everyone? Can everyone treat heart attack with jogging? I must say that jogging more often leads to heart attacks than prevents them. So you do not take anything, you cannot take anything for granted. Adaptation is not given by God. Adaptation is not something that exists and will work if it can. For example, a person has to adapt if they have lost their limbs. The person adapts, but he has a problem with his back. This is a very bad disease, but he cannot do without it because he hasn't got his limbs. The person is high or not too high, tall or not too tall. The persons are different, but they can bend their legs at the same angle, everybody. But why is it so? Why is this angle the same for everyone? I forget. A woman should measure 90, 60, 90. I forget how much it is in breast, waist, and hips. Why is it so? Irrespective of her state, irrespective of anything, adaptation is functional for our organism, but it is variable. And now I am entering into the discussion with those who represent medicine. They do accept that in 1994 this book Sonology appeared, which is on the screen, the book by academician Kryzhanovsky. All the academicians, those who are for evolution and against evolution, they were all writing about the organizing and deranging systems. Well, I must say that now it's been accepted and everyone agrees with that since that time, since 1994. So the last thing where we cannot agree upon is that the person has to be told, sorry, the person says, I have blood pressure 140. Is it good or bad? I say, I don't know. Frankly speaking, I don't know, but I can check. We'll be talking about it again separately, but really, if a person has high or low gas exchange, or if a person produces a lot of rhianine, then it's his minimum for adaptation, 140, and they say that it's too high. So let us check and measure all that. So norms, the norms of pulse, for example, 70 beats per minute. I can take more sophisticated examples, but here I'm talking about some simpler things. There are no norms or standards that can work, and all the modern efficient medicine is connected with the protocol, norms and standards. So you come to see a doctor, you can see the normal blood pressure, and tomorrow you are dead of hypertension. Why is it so? You are against the standards. Or, for example, a person comes with a blood pressure of 180, but I am very happy about it. I just have it. But the doctors, traditional doctors, are on the alert because this is against the norms and standards. We discussed it with my colleague, the criteria for diabetes, the concentration of fatty acids. This is such a really mosaic of silly opinions. I was talking to the doctors, they understand it, but they say if we follow your advice, there can be a mistake, there can be an error. And they will tell us, how could you if you went against standards? When we are working according to the standards, even if the outcome is bad, they cannot reproach us. This is the problem. So these are ethical norms, norms of ethics. And the last thing, what is my organization dealing with? I am doing research and development, to put it shortly. It is spiroarteria cardio device. So it's a boundary, functionally, determination of cardiovascular system and respiratory system. Why should we do it? Because when you come to see a doctor and the doctor detects your cardiovascular diseases, sometimes he gives you a kind of diagnosis which is almost close to sudden death. So after that, they detect your heart rhythm, whether the beating is rhythmic or not, rhythmic or arrhythmic. Like, for example, the rhythm is different between the intervals. But really, it is good because rhythmic pulsation is only when you are drunk or just before you are dead. It should not be rhythmic because a rhythmic pulsation is the basis for your adaptation, for your functional adaptation. So this is about the variability of rhythm. Then you have to measure the vessel rhythm. So, do you understand what I'm talking about in the medical terms? How shall we measure the rhythm? Well, somehow we measure the rhythm on a closed arteria and you get all the results, and then you have to watch the lungs, and you are led to the device to measure lungs, the respiratory volume. When it is too little, then they give you the diagnosis, then you breathe out and you are measured. Another index, in the index of obstruction, And after everything has been measured, they see that you have a small volume of the lungs. What if you have a big volume of the lungs? They say it is good, but which is absolutely false, because if the lung volume is too big, then it means that adaptation needed it for something. It means that the lungs were not healthy. Our colleague knows that I am one of the twins, and we are very, very much alike. He never smoked a single cigarette during 75 years. I haven't had a day without a cigarette during the same 75 days, and my lungs are healthier than his. It's not because my lungs are good, but because my lung volume is bigger than his. It's not because my lungs are healthy, it's because they are not healthy. It's because my lungs adapted to something bad to compensate for something bad, but it is not healing. So they have measured everything, and now the three doctors gather together and try and decide how to do the combined analysis during 3 minutes. We have to do the combined analysis to calculate the phases of respiration and cardiovascular phases to get a complex picture and to tell the person, we will show you the device and we will show you how it works and we will give the results to the patient. So the same approaches exist in treating the spine and in psychomotoric regulation, where you measure many factors at different stages and states. So that it is with the development of these technologies that we deal to determine the adaptation reserve of the organism. And now our colleague will be taking the floor. As my colleague said, as Vladimir Leonidovich said, you can open the car with a button or with a key. Some people say we are after health without the human being. So I will stop here. If you have any questions, they are welcome. You were talking about adaptation. A person adapts to the environment. The environment deteriorates. Did I say that adaptation is only for the best? No, I didn't say adaptation. It's adaptation. It's our ability when we become older, the reserves of the organism become smaller. But if we do not switch on the adaptation mechanism, you will die earlier. If we adapt to deteriorating biosphere, does it go through diseases? The human being of the future, is it a person who is not healthy? Well, I agree with your thesis that as the reserves of the organisms, reserves of the adaptation are determined by its resistance to the disease, in the end, the person deteriorates its own status. But what can you recommend? You will be healthy, but you will die earlier. Of course, we all want to live up to Alzheimer's disease. I think that that amnesia is even better, and adaptation is better. There is adaptation. For example, what shall I do
in my state with about sexual adaptation. I'll just go into masturbation, and there is always a way out. What shall I do? There are always ways out for sexual adaptation. A person wants to live longer and a healthier life. Is it so? I must say that if a person wants to live longer and have fun, I first suggest seeing a psychiatrist. But this is a natural wish of a desire. What does it mean? The person wants. The person should realize that he has what he has. He wants to be in a stable state, just not to change the rhythm of life too much. But if a person wants to become older and run, then they have to see a psychiatrist. What about alcohol? Can I have a question? Can I ask a question? A more technical. The method that you are developing and using, you determine the state of vessels. Do you make measurements in a certain point of a human body and make a conclusion of all the vessels, or what do you do? Of course, we do measure in an isolated place, but on an open vessel, that is, we do not put pressure on the vessel. This is a Stanford method, graduated. I will go into details later if you wish. That is, the vessel is all the time open. It's like a bent finger, and the flood of blood is quite good. Your question is, how does it correlate with all the other vessels in the organism? For example, the state of the vessel in the finger is fine. Would it mean that the vessels in the leg is the same? What is your objective? Do you determine the general state of a human being? Today we spoke about science and pseudoscience. If we want to speak about pseudoscience, we want to say that every method has its own application. If you want to know the state of vessels in the leg, then you measure them there. For determining the state of vegetative system with the rhythm of the vessels in general, you can measure even in the ear, because we do not measure absolute notions, but we measure variability, and variability is the same throughout the organism. It's sympathetic and parasympathetic features. So I like the objective, then you just go and measure it on your toe. The last question there. What do you think of alcohol drinking, the so-called accepted norms and standards? I think that it's not by chance that you are asking. You are looking at me, and you must know that I am very positive about taking alcohol. I'm very positive about it. There is our colleague who is from biochemistry, and he will say that in your organism every day, alcohol is the final product of all carbohydrates, and you produce 70 milliliters of alcohol within your organism. Because when your organism functions, the level is much higher, which leads to euphoria. It also has to do with the sexual acts. So making love is also a factor for producing alcohol. I did not check. I cannot say. The the less frequent you make love, the less alcohol you have in the organism. All the cardiology thinks that alcohol in certain doses is absolutely not only harmless, but it is useful and recommended. And they bring that life expectancy of the French and Italian spontaneously had the highest life expectancy because they were drinking all their life. We won't be talking about those examples, but what is better? Shall we say that you can drink? Shall we say not more than 70 milliliters for a woman and 100 milliliters for a man per day? 100 milliliters every day. It's very important. Every day. Yes. But how can you persuade someone that 110 is bad? Will you be measuring? Will you be measuring whether it's 100 or 110? And so it also depends on the weight of the body. So I can say just one thing. We have no right to give recommendations, but I do. And by the way, they are rather effective and efficient. There was an academician who died recently who was of the same opinion. I recommended, I gave him some recommendations, and he lived a long life till 93 years. And he followed my recommendations. Unfortunately, we cannot give any norms or standards. Just one little thing. Okay, later. About adaptation. I think it is very important to distinguish the notions of adaptation and readaptation. We all adapt to the environment. So if we are not balanced, then it's the beginning of a disease, dysregulatory pathology. For example, if a person is in the space, the limbs can be lost when there is no support, and at a certain point the adaptation goes back. After this weightless state, the dog goes back on the limbs, and the limbs start functioning again. But after a certain point of time, they cannot adapt again. Well, you can use some alcohol to treat that. As for adaptation, I absolutely agree with the speakers, but I would add to the thing you say about environment. An important example is about the higher level of radioactivity in the environment. They all tell us always that it is bad, but my colleague says that there is the term. Well, why do they say that it's bad? It's because there is the theory of linear doses. A lot of radioactivity, high level of radioactivity, and irreversible disease. Academician Kuzin introduced the term of radiohemesis. They introduced higher radioactivity, for example, for the chickens and also for treating impotency. It means that very high levels of radioactivity are very bad. Medium doses are harmless, but if you take smaller doses, it may be even worse than medium doses. So it is statistics. There are some doses and big doses that can be favorable and not harmful. The norms that are more than 10 times higher than the norm produce positive effects on the population. Like in Dukunsh, for example, 24 times higher than the norm, and the people have the well-being not worse than in other regions. But there are zones when there is low radioactivity, and there are a lot more cancer diseases than elsewhere, which contradicts to our standard linear way of thinking. And we have to notice it. At least this is an incorrect approach to this linear approach. I just took this extreme, so to say, example. Everybody knows that radioactivity is bad, but it is not always so. It's the same as with alcohol. Well, let's watch the time
У
limit.
нас будет сейчас 10-минутный
We
перерыв.
will have a 10 minutes break,
И мы можем после того еще
and
сделать...
after that,
Да.
we will go on.
Да.
Well, 10 minutes have been used already, but it's fine.
No, it's fine.
We're in time.
Well, it's okay. Ahead of time. Okay. Sorry if something was not clear, just it was too much noise. If you didn't catch something from translation.
No, the problem is not that. Hello, Artemi.
Yes, it's
Привет.
good because
How is everything?
Very good.
Good, I'm glad to hear. I think we are moving forward.
Yes.
Moving forward.
Yes. Speak. Tell. I tell some.
Me? Tonight? Yeah, yes, of course. Part 2. After, после Veikov. Да, да, да. Да.
In English.
In English. Yes. По-английски, да. But Lydia is translating immediately. Okay. Hello.
I'm Yulia.
Hello, Yulia. Nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you, Konstantin. How are you?
I'm fine.
I'm doing the translation.
Yes, I saw.
Just transmitted. Hope it's okay. But normally it is.
I'm sure it's okay, at very least. I'm sure.
Why?
You know your work. Why not?
I know my work.
I
and
can.
I enjoy it.
Yes. Well, in that case, it's more than
Not only
okay.
I know it, I enjoy it. I love it. Everything that's translation, interpreting, and teaching English. I love it.
Good. And what about the discussion? You're finding it interesting?
Yes, yes, very interesting.
The content? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
This is what we are aiming for and hoping that it becomes popular so that we can have many more. The idea is to bring people of such caliber and background, with such knowledge, who normally cannot be accessed by the public, particularly in terms of what they write, because their work does not get into normal journals for the public. It's academic. Perhaps not, but it's too academic.
Too academic.
And the general public, it's difficult.
Doesn't get it.
No.
It's not reach general public. But this is aimed at general public.
It is.
More than at academic society.
Oh, absolutely. They have already enough qualifications and
and
accolades.
Yeah,
They don't need any more. But the public is missing their important information.
And that's what they're doing here. I mean,
And that's why,
disseminating.
exactly.
That's why it's very important to have it. Okay. Thank you. I'll just have a quick smoke outside. I know it's not healthy, but it helps.
Yeah, all good. Thank you. It's quite strong, that light, suddenly. What is that on? Ah, it's the projector. I'm in the wrong place. I think I need to be over here, yeah. A bit too much in the range of the projector. Ah, no, I'm fine. I just need to stand over here. It's very simple. Okay, Max? Yes. You said 100 people were coming. I counted 30. That's okay.
Well, maybe it's an illusion, optical illusion.
Each one has 3 parts. So if we allow all the 3 parts to be, we have 90 people. My eyes are seeing 3, Max, 6, Max, 3, 5, 7, 7, 3. I can see doppelgangers, triple gangers, quadruple gangers. Okay, that's fine, but what's this for? Of course my mic is on, but so?
Well, it's just microphone Konstantinovich has.
Yeah, I need to switch it off. But who is that, Jerry?
Они убавили звук.
Все понял.
Пускай не в таком виде, потому что я буду выдергивать, по-видимому. То есть это не будет презентация, как лекция.
So we are now passing over to the second part of our event. And Vladimir Leonidovich Vayeikov will be the next presenter. He will tell us in more detail about the topic. When I came here, I learned that it will be the common factor that will be discussed. And I try to think what it is, common factor.
Мне показалось, что то, о чем я собирался рассказать, это и есть рассказать об основном факторе
Going to
биологии.
speak about is about
Вот
this common
такая у
factor
меня,
in biology.
так сказать, возникла аллюзия.
This is the
Ну,
illusion that
на
I
самом
had.
деле я
In fact,
действительно кончил биофак МГУ,
I really graduated
еще в
from
68
the
году,
Department
и с
of
тех пор
Biophysics of the
занимался
Faculty of
биохимией,
Biology
биологией,
and have been dealing
биоорганической
with
химией,
bio
как
and
работает
organic
этой кафедре.
chemistry.
И вот как и
And
Александр Олегович
as my
многих лет
colleague, during many years I have been dealing with molecular mechanisms of hormone regulation on receptors, proteins, hormones, mediators, etc. And at some point, I think like 10 or 15 years ago, I was lecturing and felt that the facts accumulated and kept accumulating. How many receptors there are, how many hormone reactions, molecules, and the facts were accumulating exponentially. And when you research it, you just choose a rather narrow point and stick to it. But when you have to lecture and to tell students about the mechanisms, then you are somewhat drowned in all that, to try and remember all those facts and reactions and their interconnections. And there are a lot of questions arising. My colleague has already mentioned it. How can we take all those multiple reactions? How do they coordinate with each other, and what regulates them? And I felt somewhat dissatisfied with the state of things. And in connection with that and with many other factors, I got interested in the ultra-low photon emissions, and we can speak about it a lot, but we don't have time for that, unfortunately. And I started thinking of how to deal with this variety and non-coordinated variety at that, how to try and find there a certain common background for what goes on in cells, in cell populations, in organs, in tissues, and in the body as a whole. In fact, life has to be rather simple and based on a limited number of principles, and science should find something fundamental, a fundamental background, not just a great variety of facts. Like, for example, Mendeleev found a common principle for the great variety of chemical elements and laws. Everything fits very well on this table, for example. And it came that I understood at some point that there is one factor for all living beings, which that is, there is nothing among the living beings that would not be connected with water. This is banal, this is commonplace, but this can be extrapolated differently. For example, we know, and it has been written, there has been written a lot, that 70% of human organism is made up of water. The younger the person is, the more energetic the person is, the more water it has. The older physiologically the body is, the less water there is. This is all
Но что
commonplace.
такое много?
But
70%.
70% or even 80% or even 85%.
Но ведь мы же не,
But
когда речь идет о биохимии,
when we are talking about biochemistry, it's not weighed. The solutions are not weighed in percent. They're measured in moles for the chemical reactions. It's not kilo per kilo, but it's mole per mole. There are some living beings that you can see there in the picture, jellyfish. They consist of water 99.9% even by weight. And if we take our organism, it has more than 90% moles of water. Well, I will not go very deep into chemistry, but just believe me that even bones contain 99.9% of water by moles. And this jellyfish consists of 99.9% of water. And my favorite molecular biology, chemistry and biochemistry studies the solid content, which makes up only 0.1%, all those proteins, fats, etc. Now, if we take molecular biology and biochemistry, and they are not interested by those 99.9% of water. In the big book on chemistry, there's only one page which would be dedicated to water content. So what is this jellyfish? Living water? What is it? I say we can hold it in our hands. We hold this living water. This living water may give a big blow to it, proliferates, I can see it is even luminescent. It emits light. This water emits light photons. And another interesting thing, as you can see, this sea water, this jellyfish is very pure water, is in the sea water, which is much less pure. It consists of 97% of water versus 3% of solids. And then in their books on physical, chemical, osmotic pressure, etc., try to find out how come, why doesn't it explode, this jellyfish, why doesn't it inhibit salts, why, what happens with it? If we cut this jellyfish, no water will flow out of it. And fortunately, I have come to some thoughts long after the greatest scientists, many dozens centuries years ago, also came to the same thought. The common state of brain, of education brings, did not bring the thoughts to this issue. Albert St. George, Nobel Prize winner, who discovered ascorbic acid in 1978, but basically she said it even earlier. He said that biology did not succeed in understanding of basic living functions because it focused its attention on a substance in the form of particles, dissecting them from two matrices, water and electromagnetic field. And this is really so. I am working for the Faculty of Biology of the university. When I come to the Department of Hydrobiology, I have to tell them about what role water plays in the life. The department deals, in fact, with the organisms that inhabit water. So this water can be very sophisticated. I have just come from the 10th annual conference on physics, biology and chemistry of water in Bulgaria. The attendees were those who consider water as a much more sophisticated matter, substance, and organized matter than as just water in a glass. So we think that water in a glass is just a set of molecules which are maybe interacting, maybe not. Of course, we know that water has kind of structure, organization, domains, with their certain life term, and during trifles of a second the structures change, and the speed of changes in the water is much higher than the speed of the fastest chemical reaction. So this model of water, the standard model of water in any book, of course it is true to life, but only to a small portion of it. For example, jellyfish is not the same water substance as the substance in the glass, where the molecules are constantly changing their state, because if it were so, the jellyfish could not exist. This is the water memory. It repeats the morphology of water as its memory. Like we are also the memory of water. What is jellyfish? Jellyfish is the state of water which everybody knows when you make water stable, gelid, in a gelid state, like for example gelid meat, which is water basically, but you can cut it, in fact, cut and serve it, and water does not flow out. What does it mean? We know that if we withdraw all the structures, all the structuring elements, we desiccate this jellyfish, condensate water, and then it is just water. So only 1% of this organic substance makes 99.9% of water, a substance which is completely different to the water in a glass. And strange as it may seem, when you realize that, you are very much surprised why no one thought of it 100 years ago, 50 years ago. It's so obvious, but in fact they did. Even 100 years ago there were researchers who thought of this gelid state of water. Colloidal chemistry appeared from this kind of surprise in the middle of the 19th century, but then it appeared to be too sophisticated, difficult to explain or to model, and it did not come in the right time. The research was on the periphery of research, and much more simple things were in the focus of attention. Moreover, I have to say that in Leningrad there was one of the centers where two scientists worked who took completely different view of water. Those were Professors Alexandrov and Nasonov, who worked on the issue in 1930s, who felt that the things that I am talking about now, as far as I understand, now the institute that they worked for is still existing and still going on with this line of these two professors, Nasonov and Alexandrov, who initiated the new direction. And nowadays, Western researchers who work on the issue accept their views. The standard model of water is as follows. The jellyfish has got proteins and polysaccharides, and they bind a lot of water. This is the water which is gelid. Do you understand what gel? How gel is different from liquid water? Paradoxically, in physical chemistry, this notion of the difference between gelid water and liquid water became understood and understandable in terms of physical mechanisms only during the last 10 years, not 20 or 30 years, but only beginning with the year 2000. And there was American scientist Gerald Pollack. In the year 2000, he wrote the book Cells, Gels and Engines of Life. He collected all the references on the topic, and he showed that whatever functions of cells we take, we have to take into account that water is gelid to understand any functions. Otherwise, the most beautiful models, computer models or anything else, would not be true to life or not lead to understanding. So Gerald Pollack wrote the book and began experimenting, and he found out the following. You have got a hydrophilic surface, and how many layers of water can stick to this surface? According to the book, 1 or 2 layers of water. In terms of molecules, 1 layer of molecules. So something that is farther from the surface than 1 or 2 layers of molecules of water is just liquid water. And what is there in reality? Gerald Pollack started studying the thing, and he showed that on this hydrophilic surface, there may be gelid water on the thickness of some parts of millimeters. So that means that there will be 1 million molecules on this hydrophilic surface. I'm talking about the order, not just 1 or 2 layers, but 1 million. It's something visible to the eye, something like 0.5 millimeter. If you have a particle in the water and near this particle, everything is transparent, whereas in the bulk of water, the surface is not transparent. Why is it that the water is transparent around the particle? It's because there is something that protects it. If we look into an organism or into a cell, for example, erythrocytes, by the way, there was Professor Kuzin who published the article in 1968 and 1969. He regarded the erythrocyte cell with the hemoglobin solution, and they calculated that the molecules there within the solution, which consists of 74% of water, around the molecule of hemoglobin there is almost no water, liquid water around it. Almost the whole water around it is gelid. This is a dynamic solution containing gelid water which can change its state quickly and dynamically. And in 2003, Gerald Pollack discovered this phenomenon, which is now very widely known, unfortunately, among biologists, but not to the books for the students, for the faculties of biologists, because they do not change their opinions. So this water, interfacial water, so-called interfacial water, contacts the bulk of water, and this interfacial water is a liquid crystallic quasi-polymer, and it's dynamically structured water. Dynamically structured water. Now, many people say we have prepared structured water. This is structured water. This is structured water. What do they mean? Both those who say and those who hear it. They mean crystal structure, the molecules that are structured in a definite way, like a crystal. But in fact, this crystal is not the solid one, but it is like the one in the liquid crystal form. Something changes, but the order remains. This is an example of this liquid crystal organized water, super stable water structurally, very dynamic and at the same time very stable. We know it quite well. This is what we can see in atmospheric water, vortices, tornadoes, when during 2 minutes a chaotic cloud suddenly grows into such a thing which becomes denser and dense within several dozen meters, from chaos to an organized structure. What about the clouds themselves? The existence of clouds themselves contradicts to the dogmatic notion of the second law of thermodynamics. It's because everything is to disseminate normally, but it does not disseminate. It concentrates and gives these fascinating pictures of clouds, tornadoes, and the clouds that stretch many kilometers long with the width of 20 to 30 meters, rotating. What is that? This is a dynamic structure, and these dynamic structures are unbelievably stable. So, really, in fact, starting from the jellyfish, which has its own morphology, and we can say that the same about fossil structures. All this is water. Structurally, the main element there is water. But water is still water in the jelly, and in the jelly that we eat. The thing is that it's living water. What is living water? It's not only the water that contains those processes, is placed for those processes, but energy must be born from somewhere in this water. Well, we speak about luminescence, but this is another issue. So this interfacial water, this big layer, it was not discovered by Pollack, it was just shown by a reproducible experiment. What he did discover is that this water, which is near the surface, is negatively charged. Water in itself is neutral, it should remain neutral, and the positive charge is concentrated near this interfacial water. Positive charges are protons. So when we speak about pH, we speak about its origins. I will not go very deeply into physical chemistry. No one can explain why the water has got these ions, but this experiment can explain it, and we can see that near negatively charged interface, the cell surface, or protein surface, they are all negatively charged. Next to them, there is negatively charged water. Normally, negative charges should not be together. They should not concentrate. This is divided charge. This is a divided charge. This is billions of molecules of water that are on the whole negatively charged. If we put another charge there, there will be electric current there, and the potential difference is about 0.15 volt, and membrane potential is quite important there. So the theory of membrane potential, the theory of division of charges, all these theories and models do not really work there. These simple experiments show that we are now in a difficult state between the notion of flat Earth and Copernicus theory. We are talking about ions, the ions who do not go away from the water because they are charged, negatively charged, and we can prove it with an electrode. These electrodes can be given away. The electrons can be given away where to the acceptor. And moving electron from the donor to acceptor is a reaction. And where do we get the energy from? We get the energy from oxidation reduction reactions. Here we have electrons and we have oxygen. And so oxygen is acceptor for electrons, water reduces them, and we have the reaction of water burning, which is absurd, but water burning was discovered, in fact, at the end of the 18th century, discovered again at the end of the 19th century, and in the beginning of the 21st century it was demonstrated when the salt water was subjected to emission and it gave fire. Water was burning. But for water to burn, it should be dynamically structured and there should be a lot of oxygen. So what kind of reaction do we have? We have 2 molecules of water burnt, and we have 2 molecules of water plus a molecule of oxygen. It's like phoenix bird. It burnt out and became water and oxygen again. But the water was structured here, and we get non-structured water. What happened? We got energy due to increasing entropy. This is free energy, purely free energy. If there were no regeneration, then it would have just burnt out. Now, the nature is such that with disseminating external magnetic fields and infrared emission, this water, this chaotic water, comes back to a structured state. That is, the energy is the factor that promotes burning. In other words, water makes dissipated heat into the energy of light. Water transfers the energy of sound into the energy of light. So you can understand that there is a big course of lectures. That is why I stop here and have to say that at the moment, while we haven't made it the foundation for some for the education and understanding of what is built on that. Before we understand that a super Mercedes car will not move without wheels, however much gold we put on it, we do not know anything about the wheels themselves. So this is something that we have to understand now, to understand the foundations. I am returning the compliment. I agree with you. Just two small remarks. First of all, you are quite right, but you forget that Lamarck thought that water is the only vehicle for creating species. But he also said that apart from the energy and free water, water is free radical state. When I go, also I want to say, when I go fishing, I try to take a big hook because it's better to not to catch a big fish than to catch small fish. And also, the person who takes a difficult way, everyone has a right for an error, but even a big error is honorable. Well, in fact, my presentation was about Lamarck's principle of evolution, and there was such a slide there. According to Lamarck, the responsiveness of living things to external factors is provided by the nature of chemical material of living things, gelatinous and mucilaginous matter. This was the beginning of the 19th century. Darwin is not about matter. What structures water? Why is it structured? Water is structured by itself, its self-organization. Your question is in accordance with the general state of minds. Something should be there, change, form. There should be something or somebody who would organize or arrange things. In fact, now, in the 21st century, we have to understand that there is self-organization. You have to get the initial conditions and an incentive for the system to build itself, to become more and more sophisticated, to develop, and to become more and more stable and adaptive. This is self-organization. Can we say that any surface is self-organized? Yes, we can say that it's self-organized. So it's within itself, the self-organization. And in real nature, we cannot have the situation when there are no surfaces. Even in water, there is a surface. It contacts with something. There is an interface always. If the external molecules are charged positively, then the internal should be charged negatively. It's a commonplace. No, it is not. No. Let us not confuse charges like cations and anions. We have glycoproteins on the membrane surface, the acids. This is a negatively charged particle inside. But there can be some positive charges there. Yes, sure. If there is a positively charged particle next to the interface, how will the charges be distributed? You can see them here. Here are the positively charged protons, and they are dynamic. This is a scheme. This is just a scheme. This is not real science. This is a scheme of organization. But plasmapheresis goes from negative charge to positive charge. If they were neutral, they could not move anywhere. they could not move anywhere. So they are negatively moved. They have a net negative charge. Let's not go very deep into such details. We are more about the overall things. Are there any questions from the audience? Like one question. Liquid crystals. We know that they change their structure under electric and magnetic fields. What about the human body? Of course, the conference which I attended was dedicated to this, to the reaction of the organism. All the science is about this, about medicine. The medicine and, of course, unfortunately, it is not reflected in the brains and in the minds. But there is a lot of references on that. The science does without it, but it does not mean that it's object and subject the body does without it. Biochemistry as a science was something quite detached and not having to deal with any matrix, unfortunately. Thanks a lot.
You don't have access to anything, so. How does this work?
Like this.
Дорогие друзья, скажите, пожалуйста, может ли нам сейчас будет перевод с английского на русский? С английского на русский. Хорошо.
Yes, of course. You will need. Okay, and then how do we take it off?
Take it off.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe like
This erase? Da. Very
Okay,
good.
that's good.
Okay, and then this is, it's doing something. Okay,
Yes.
and this is not doing something.
Oh, I think it's like this.
Okay, very nice. So first, I would like to welcome everyone here, and I'm very pleased to see such a good turnout, especially very pleased to have people that I've known for some years. This is Professor Bayekov, people who I've known now the last 2 years, and new people that we are meeting, to offer an opportunity to everybody to hear very important information which is not readily available to the general public, and to be explained directly by the people who understand their work extremely well. Because it's one thing to read some publication, it's another thing to have the words spoken with a dynamic and live level of delivery, which is what we call a transmission. It's not just an intellectual understanding. She's very...
Так, спасибо большое, друзья, что вы пришли сегодня. И он очень рад видеть всех вас, в особенности не только тех, кого он знает много лет, так как Владимира Леонидовича, или не так давно Леонида Алексеевича, и даже новых лиц. И важным на сегодняшний день является факт, что у нас есть возможность коснуться очень-очень важной информации, которая так или иначе недоступна в обычном случае для широкой публики. Одно дело прочитать статью, и другое дело иметь возможность донести это до широкой аудитории.
Okay. No, just let me, I'll take care of that. That's it. Yes, we know now. That one there. Okay. Now, I'm here to talk about integrated medicine because I've been involved with therapy, and I'm a complementary medical practitioner, and I've been involved with disorders and diseases and what causes them, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And the whole concept of integrative medicine is to look at a human being not as an organism that is a collective of different systems which acts sometimes in response to external environments, but according to medical doctors, typically they are looking at your condition based on symptomology. That means, what is your problem and what might have caused it and how quickly can I fix it up? Because I'm not interested in your health, I'm only interested in how to fix the symptom or your problem. Because clearly we don't go to a doctor when we're feeling good. We go when we think or feel something is wrong.
И сегодня предметом разговора будет интегративная медицина, с которой он работал многие десятилетия. Также Константин был вовлечен в разные терапевтические техники, в классическую альтернативную медицину. И на данный момент медицина является местом, где люди решают вопрос о симптоматике. Никого не интересует в конечном итоге связь ментального, эмоционального, физического уровней и того, как человек может взаимодействовать в этом состоянии. Соответственно, когда вы приходите к врачу, вас спрашивают о симптомах, и врач пытается найти наибыстрейшее решение к вашим проблемам, вашим симптомам, не пытаясь разобраться в истинной причине того, что...
Now, integrative medicine has adopted an attitude of looking at your lifestyle, your behavior patterns, your daily modes of operating. They don't look only at symptomology and conditions. What is your relationship with your family, with money, with work? What is your attitude to life? Do you exercise? How many times? What do you eat? How do you sleep? So many factors are brought into the overall perspective of the person. We call them clients, not patients.
И в интегративной медицине рассматривается не только симптоматика, но также и образ жизни человека, его работа, его взаимоотношения с семьей, его психоэмоциональное состояние, его взаимоотношения на работе. Сколько раз в день он ест, спит ли он достаточно регулярно, занимается ли он спортом и в каких количествах. Таким образом, получается целостная картина, которая дает нам глубокое понимание не только на уровне симптомов.
At the RSC, the clinic that I have, which is a registered medical clinic, I have a medical doctor who works with us. Her specialty is mental health. We have a live blood analyst who also, her specialty is nutrition. Then we have a complex of devices I call integrative computerized information platform. And its purpose is to try to connect allopathy, CAM, wisdom traditions with science. Because all allopathy is in one way or another based on science, whether it is through medicine or technology, and all complementary medicine is based on wisdom traditions. It means traditions that are hundreds or thousands of years old, pre-modern science, whether it is from China, which is influenced by Taoism in traditional Chinese medicine. Actually, it is called classical Chinese medicine because traditional Chinese medicine of today is from Chairman Mao's period, where most of the classical philosophy has been taken out. Or Ayurveda, or Tibetan, which is based on a mix of all of them. But they are generally called wisdom traditions. And what I have looked at is that this, which is based on science, this, which is based on wisdom traditions, these two don't speak very well. Their language is very different. They don't understand each other too well. So by creating some kind of interface, which is a computerized interface, a platform, it gives us an opportunity to begin to see the many aspects of the human entity.
И в своей клинике Константин реализовал принцип интегративной компьютеризированной информационной платформы, которая включает в себя подход аллопатической, то есть классической медицины, которая так или иначе основана на науке или технологии, альтернативной медицины, то есть медицины, которую мы знаем как народную медицину в частности, которая имеет свои корни в традициях и мудрости многих-многих поколений. И он в какой-то момент так или иначе пришел к выводу, что традиционная мудрость очень плохо общается с наукой. И через эту платформу он нашел способ диалога между ними. Потому что так или иначе китайская медицина, будем ли мы о ней говорить в классическом виде, то есть до Мао, тибетская медицина, которая является миксом всех, или японская медицина, которая имеет основу Дао.
Great. It works. It's working. Oh no! It came back.
Don't do this.
Okay, keep speaking. My goodness. Will you disappear? You see. Keep going, keep speaking. Explain. The wonder of science.
Okay, yeah.
It doesn't want to go away. Science does not want to go away. Okay, let's do all. It needs to go. All needs to go. Maybe if I'm fast enough. Oh, that's good. One button, one command, the major command button. Okay, continue. Finished? Okay. So the key to all of this is about understanding. Oh, this one?
No.
That one?
Yes.
You can say it. The human, earth, and cosmic interface. That means we have something we're living on. We're aware of it, we feel it, we see it, we breathe its gases, we eat its food, and we feel the impact on our body. That's us here. We're the humans, by the way.
Соответственно, у нас получается следующий интерфейс взаимодействия между человеком, то есть нами, той поверхностью, на которой мы живем, Земля, теми газами, которые мы дышим, той едой, которую мы едим, благодаря ей, и уровнем, который следует далее.
And then we are aware of something outside of us, which is beyond the limits of the planet. And there are effects from there in terms of waves that are coming to the planet, and it's impacting the way in which the planet is actually functioning. Functioning as a living organism, not just a collection of matter that by some accident somehow is going through its own cycles of expansion and contraction.
И далее есть космический уровень, то есть тот уровень, который выходит за пределы планеты, и оттуда мы имеем постоянные эффекты, которые воздействуют на саму планету. Это радиация, различные волны. И планета, на которой мы живем, это не просто некоторое количество материи, которое просто так живет по своим циклам. Это, по сути, тоже огромный живой организм, с которым мы находимся во взаимодействии.
То есть мы что-то сообщаем космосу?
Нет, мы воспринимаем больше, чем сообщаем.
In all wisdom traditions, according to its language, they talk about an interface between the micro, meso, which means in between, and macro. This means small, in between, and large. And this is related to this existence that we have on the planet. That means we are the microorganism, the microcosmic. This is the meso-organism, and this is the macro. This is a very collective, typical perspective of all wisdom traditions.
И во всех традиционных учениях мы знаем о том, что речь идет о микроуровне, мезоуровне и макроуровне, где макро соответствует тому, что происходит на уровне планет и звезд, то есть космическому уровню, микро соответствует человеку, и мезо — это промежуточное звено, находящееся между, то есть наша планета. И это является общим знанием для всех традиций.
And this was, of course, I didn't sketch it as nicely as Da Vinci did, but this is the purpose of the Vitruvian man. This is the earth. This is the human. And this is what he called the universal. And there is a link between the three in proportions, specific proportions, which we see as part of a harmonic, which exists as a pattern throughout all of our external environment.
И в этом скетче, конечно, он получился не так хорошо, как у Да Винчи, да, вертурианского человека. Мы видим также взаимодействие между Землей, человеком и тем, что Да Винчи назвал вселенским законом, да, то есть и это выражается не только в идеологии, не только в философии, но также и в пропорциях нашего тела. Да, они имеют соотношение по золотому сечению.
And this is known as the Fibonacci connection.
Мы знаем это как связь с Фибоначчи.
Да. Okay, it's a proportion, it's a ratio, and it helps us to understand one aspect of size or a sequence to another. And it repeats itself in plants, in animals, within ourselves, and between the micro, meso, and the macro.
И мы знаем, что Фибоначчи — это последовательность, которую мы встречаем во всех живых организмах, в различных системах, где идет самовоспроизведение на разных уровнях.
What do you think connects these three? What is the common factor between these three?
Итак, как вы думаете, что же является общим фактором между этими тремя уровнями? Our curiosity.
Maybe. Vladimir has been speaking about something.
Владимир Леонидович говорил нам о чем-то.
This here is made 70% of this one thing by volume and 99% molecularly, correct? That's us. Whether we think it, understand it, or believe it, it is fact. Correct? Okay. And we found that this here has a lot of that stuff as well. And we've also found, according to what I have read, and Vladimir agrees, we found the same stuff out here.
И дальше, как Владимир Леонидович говорил нам ранее, это то самое находится на уровне микро в человеке, 70% именно его. В Земле этого также очень много. И в соответствии с тем, что сейчас публикуется в литературе, и даже то, о чем Владимир Леонидович также упоминал, оно находится и на космическом уровне. Оно присутствует и там, и там, и там.
It has been said. Yeah.
Вода третье по распространенности вещество.
Third most abundant element in the universe. Yeah. So, we have been told, it is said, water is the third most abundant element. The whole point about that is the way, and that's what we're looking at here. How is everything interconnected? We hear the term regularly. It's more important to understand in what way. And that is my major objective with what I call integrative medicine. Because the objective isn't illness and how to heal or cure it, but it is how we get ill in the first place. And that's where we get to this concept of inability to adapt. Why? This is the key question.
И так как это присутствует на...
It doesn't mean it. They got the message. There.
Так как это присутствует на всех уровнях, то для Константина наиболее важным является вопрос, хорошо, и как же все взаимосвязано между собой, что является общим началом, которое все объединяет. В интегративной медицине он говорит именно об этом. Не о том, что является нашим заболеванием, но почему мы заболеваем в первом моменте, что является первичным фактором для нашего заболевания. И как в результате мы можем это обойти, то есть моментом нашей адаптации, способность или неспособность к адаптации организма.
In classical Chinese medicine, or what is called Taoist approach, there are three principles. This one here is the one most people know. What does it mean? Any ideas? Has anyone heard of this before?
В классической даоистской традиции есть три основных начала – шен, чи и джин. Соответственно, про чи, большая часть, наверное,
Но это же
слышала.
был Китай.
Да. О чем же это? Какие-нибудь идеи? Что же это такое? Water,
Water?
air,
Вода, 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 everywhere. There are many meanings associated with qi for a reason. There's a reason. It's a very broad, generic term. And it's related to organization capacity, coherence. A person has good qi, internally there's good coherence. This is how I learned it, not the way it is taught today. This one here is related to another important quality, your vitality, how alive you are. In his language, energy reserves. This one here has a very simple word, which I think today scientifically it's still extremely difficult to define, and even according to religions, it's even more difficult to define. It's spirit. Your shin is your spirit. What does it mean? And we do not want to try to bother defining it religiously, but if we can define it somehow from a, I call it, praxosic way. A praxosic way is not a philosophic way, it's the practice of the wisdom. The spirit is what motivates, what drives us. And objective.
Чи является очень широко распространенным термином, который много в себе объединяет, но основным фактором является организация, то есть когерентность системы, способность быть организованной. Да, то есть если человек внутренне, его способность к организации высока, то говорят о том, что у него высокая чи. Джин – это состояние витальности, то есть энергетические резервы, то, о чем говорил в частности Дмитрий Алексеевич. И шин – это то, что очень сложно объяснить с научной точки зрения, туманное объяснение дает религия, это дух. То есть мы можем сказать об этом как о мотивации или о цели, об объекте интереса.
And as far as the body is concerned, these are the three main organs related to these qualities. They say kidney. You hear, if you speak with Chinese medicine, they talk about kidney energy. What they mean is the adrenals, the degree of adrenaline activity in static, or you can call vegetative state, or in active state. The qi is here in the digestive tract. Why? Because here we have the existence of these many microorganisms, trillions of them, 10 times more than the cells we have in the body. And what have we found out about this? Recently, which the Chinese have known at least 2,500 years, that this here is affecting very much your immune system. So it's related directly then to the heart because of the thymus gland, the immunity. So the whole point of this so-called understanding of what is health is the way in which these three relate to each other.
В классике даоистской медицины эти виды энергии или виды состояния связаны, соответственно, с почками и, в частности, надпочечниками.
А он что-то не почки показал. Мне кажется, что какой-то...
Далее
Adrenals.
это кортекс, иначе надпочечник. Чи связано с тем, о чем говорил Александр Олегович. Огромное количество удивительных организмов внутри нас, которые зачастую даже превосходят собственные клетки по количеству. Это чи, то есть это наш пищеварительный тракт. И он напрямую будет влиять, и это было открыто совсем недавно, связь с иммунной системой, которую в традиции связывает с сердцем, то есть вилочковой железой. И вопрос о наличии этих вещей дает нам понимание о том, насколько мы хорошо адаптируемся, что же происходит внутри нас, взаимодействие этих двух систем.
Okay. And the last thing to look at is here, is the way these are connected from sorry. The Chinese talk about a relationship between kidneys, the genitals, the intestine, spleen, the heart, here the thyroid, and then the epiphysis, hypophysis. And this, they're all connected through the nervous system, through hormones, and through the blood as well. So this is a complex, all six that fire, starting here, going to here, then to the intestines, then to the thymus, then to the thyroid, and then finally here, to affecting the brain. And this complex is very significant in understanding the way in which we're interconnected internally, from an organ system, systemic mode, through the nervous system and also the hormonal system, the psycho, neuro, endo, immunological connection.
В традиции также говорится о том, что у нас есть так или иначе взаимосвязанные между собой железы внутренней секреции, начиная от надпочечников, дальше это половые органы, это селезенка, это вилочковая железа, это щитовидная железа, гипофиз и эпифиз. Их взаимодействие, да, показано, соответственно, по степени важности. Получается, что у нас есть взаимодействие через кровь, через гормональную систему и через, да, и через нервную систему, то есть наша электрическая вся система, и получается взаимодействие психо, невро, эндо, иммунологической системы, то есть взаимодействие между всеми этими разными факторами внутри нашего организма.
The significance of the interconnection between these four has become more recently understood and is being researched further. What's important is this has been known for at least 2,500 years in traditional systems. Just they didn't have the same words. They used different terminology because they have a different model, as Vladimir is talking about. Everyone starts with a model. And here I'm looking at connecting classical wisdom tradition model with a modern scientific model to help us build a bridge between what has been existing for thousands of years and where we are today.
И все эти данные были известны традиции на протяжении 2500 лет. Поэтому это, конечно, не ново для нас, но это было известно много-много ранее. И на данный момент Константин пытается найти тот самый мост, который поможет традиции понять науку, да, и у каждого есть своя модель, но мы попытаемся создать нечто новое на стыке, что поможет нам увидеть больше.
1 second. There's one other thing. What Vladimir talked about connects all of these indirectly. This here is also connected to these two from in the body through another existing system, which is not spoken about very much in terms of its significance in the interconnectivity.
И далее, помимо того, о чем говорил Владимир Леонидович, что действительно является фактором, который взаимосвязывает между собой эти 6, да, Чи является промежуточным также звеном, и она имеет еще один аспект, о котором очень мало говорится.
And this is called fascia. Who knows what fascia is made of?
Кто знает,
Or more important, what is fascia?
что такое фасция, из чего она сделана?
You don't count.
Вас не считаем.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so fascia connects of the microtubes like fiber.
Fascia is a tissue. Fascia is it is a connective tissue. Correct. And it covers and separates into compartments many parts of the body, muscles, organs, and its main function is to interconnect. But why or how does that happen?
Фасция – это соединительная ткань, которая обволакивает все. Это оболочка, которая покрывает все органы, мышцы и является промежуточным звеном между всеми этими системами.
The reason is because it's what it's made of.
И вопрос о том, из чего она сделана.
Collagen, this means give birth, this means to connect or to glue. That which creates interconnection because of the material it's made of. Perhaps this is known, perhaps not. It's a polymer. And it is a semiconductor. And it is crystalline. very similar to the properties of water. And this stuff here is what creates what is known as the body electric. And that's the electricity in the body that can transmit messages between different parts of the body and in the water of the body, not only the nervous system. And this is what has been known and been used for thousands of years in acupuncture. You put needles in specific areas which act like an antenna that can help to balance out the electrical potential in the body.
И коллаген – это то самое вещество, из которого сделана фасция. Кола означает соединять или склеивать, а ген означает рождать, то есть рождающие соединения. По сути, это полимер, который имеет свойства полупроводника и имеет жидкокристаллическую структуру, подобную тому, о чем говорил Владимир Леонидович. Так как во всем организме это вещество присутствует, оно также использовалось в акупунктуре. Если иголка вводится в определенные места соединения фасций, то она помогает снимать избыточное электричество. По сути, то, что блокирует те или иные мышцы, те или иные органы. Это то, как работает акупунктура, и это было известно очень давно.
Every single time you move, you're stretching this collagen, which creates a piezoelectric effect that creates the electricity. And that is the potential that is there, that affects cells, and being also affecting the water molecules in the body.
И, по сути, каждая мышца, которая соприкасается с другой мышцей, находясь в вот этой коллагеновой оболочке, создает пьезоэлектричество, то есть небольшой заряд, который постоянно будет восстанавливаться в системе, и таким образом у нас образуется тот самый потенциал, который в том числе влияет на ту воду, о которой говорил Владимир Леонидович.
This is why in every culture that I have studied, in terms of their wisdom tradition, they have three fundamentals. Some kind of meditation, some kind of breathing technique, and some kind of energy movement.
Во всех традициях, которые Константин изучал, так или иначе присутствует несколько основных начал. Это в том или ином виде медитация, это определенные дыхательные упражнения, дыхательные техники, это движение энергии.
And these three get connected to each other through that stuff.
И эти три начала взаимодействуют через коллаген.
And the water, because the electrical potential created by this stuff is passed then through the water and enables this so-called holistic system to become more balanced, searching for more harmony and balance. And adaptation is dependent on the ability of this to not be tight and blocked. Because when it is, it cannot give electrical potentials clearly. And we have then the build-up of blockages of electrical impulses, which as a person I've studied and worked with and still do all the time, body blockages and energy blockages in the organs, in the tissues, and through so-called meridians. The meridians are just where each of the collagen packages, the fascia, meet. So it's basically low resistance, high potential.
И, соответственно, все блоки, находящиеся в теле, то есть то место, где наши коллагеновые упаковки фасции встречаются между собой, передают энергию через воду, этот электрический потенциал. Если в каком-то месте они блокируются, то мы знаем это как боль, мы знаем это как блоки в разных органах, в разных системах. Соответственно, повышается потенциал и снижается сопротивление в системе.
But here, as Leonid was speaking about before, the importance is that the adaptation is dynamic. It's not static. And for that to happen, we have to clear the mind of confusion and activity of thoughts that are not enabling us to be focused, have the breathing augment itself, because most people have a very low and bad breathing patterns, and the energy movement is not the same as in athletics, where we are forcing our body to do what our brain tells us, but we learn how to co-work with our body in harmonic movements. The Greeks called it eurythmia. The Chinese call it Tai Chi.
И для того, чтобы улучшить вот этот процесс адаптации, о котором говорил Леонид Алексеевич, нам необходимо так или иначе очистить разум, и для этого помогает медитация. Нам необходимо привести в порядок и улучшить состояние своего дыхания, потому что в большинстве своем люди имеют очень плохие навыки дыхания, правильного дыхания, которые помогают организму восстанавливаться. И эуритмия, то, что было известно в Греции, или тайчи, то, что было известно на Востоке, то есть движение энергии. Нам нужно научиться выпускать ее сквозь тело и взаимодействовать с ней.
The only reason why I'm telling you this is because it's at the foundation of absolutely every practice that I have met or discovered in any culture. You can change your diet, you can change your thinking and behavior patterns, you can change your clothes, you can do exercises, but unless these three are balanced, you don't work at an optimum level, neither in your metabolic system, nor in your immune system, nor, of course, then in your nervous system, and finally, your overall harmonic interchange of activity in the body.
И вы можете сменить диету, вы можете поменять одежду, вы можете делать физические упражнения, но если не будет присутствия этих трех, то вы реально не сможете поменять состояние метаболизма вместе с эндокринной системой, вместе с иммунной системой, их взаимодействием между собой, таким образом реально повышая степень адаптации.
So, thank you. Thank you. Done. So that was my understanding of how I work with integrative medicine.
И это понимание Константина на тему того, как он работает с интегративной медициной. Сейчас у нас есть около 5 минут на вопросы. Пожалуйста,
Извините.
поднимайте руки.
Yes.
What we have heard now is understanding that comes with age. How can we help kids who have some problems with their health? And there are some problems as far as I understand. How can we help small children? Is there a system worked out for kids? Because it's difficult to teach kids how to breathe or how to think and how to direct their energy. They do not feel the need for that.
This system that you described is mostly used by adults. And what about kids? Is there any techniques that is possible to use and apply to children? So, because we can't force them to think in a nice way and breathe correctly, normally, and work with energy.
In the cultures where these systems come from, everyone begins from young. It's not adults. There is no separation. The children learn from young. So obviously they're using a little bit of different language and different exercises, but the principle is the same, and we start from a young age. I started from 6 years old, so I was not an adult when I started with this work.
В нормальном случае, когда это знание является традиционным, люди начинают его использовать с самого раннего возраста. Да, язык немножко другой, да, меняется в целом форма упражнений, но смысл остается тем же. Это очень-очень ранний возраст. Константин начал заниматься в 6 лет. Он не был взрослым в это время.
So, for me to change the well-being of her 3 children, shall I
No, not at all.
change the...
You just need to learn the technique and teach them step by step with patience.
Вам нужно просто научиться техникам самой и постепенно
Да.
учить вместе с своей терпением.
Китайский язык, да.
И не трогайте фасцию, это боль.
Don't touch fascia.
Don't touch the fashion. Fine. Thank you.
Хорошо? Еще вопросы?
Is your method licensed or certified? Because as far as I know, in the Western world has very high demands on any kind of medical techniques.
Normally,
Does your method have to do with the traditional medicine?
in Western society, normally the medical understanding and licensing is quite a difficult process. So how it was possible that integrative medicine with all its wisdom traditions could come so easily, or not easily from what you know, into the market? How it is possible to bring it together?
In England, it's very easy because the laws allow it. I can't speak about Russia. I don't know enough. From what I've heard, they have a different approach. In fact, the so-called integrative medicine, the name, was developed in England. The course, I believe it began in Oxford University, and they taught it to doctors, only medical doctors who have already qualified, at Bristol University. So they ran through a course to teach medical doctors integrative medicine. Not the way I'm doing it, but what I said before, lifestyle, behavior patterns, relationship to family, money, eating patterns, sleeping patterns. That has already been initiated and is continuing, at least in the UK. I don't know enough about other countries in Europe, although I know it's also very popular in America and in Australia.
В Англии законы достаточно открыты к этому вопросу, и изначальное понятие интегративной медицины было введено именно в Англии. Курс начинался в Оксфорде, и в Бристольском университете его преподавали только для уже лицензированных медиков, и потом это стало более широко известным. Он не может сказать точно на тему России, но, очевидно, у нас несколько другие законы в этом плане, но в Европе это имеет свое распространение, больше всего распространение в Англии, в Америке и в Австралии.
My approach is to integrate the wisdom traditions of all the other medical systems, from India, from China, from Tibet, etc., with science, using devices, because I'm working with Leonid and his complex, to help explain how things work, not if they work, because we know they work. They've worked for thousands of years. The question is why and how.
И это не вопрос, Константин просто пытается привести вместе все эти разные традиции, да, индийскую, китайскую, тибетскую и прочие, и помочь им объяснить себя на научном языке. Потому что мы знаем о том, что это работает, мы не знаем только как и почему.
And lots of research has been done on meditation, for example, and many other breathing techniques, mostly in vegetative state, not in movement. That's what's missing. And as Leonid speaks, we agree on this 100%. People normally take readings before and after the process, not during. And the most important thing to read is what happens during the process. And we need to find a way to do that accurately.
И, соответственно, было достаточно много исследований на тему медитации, дыхания.
Finish?
И были исследования, связанные с дыхательными техниками, были исследования, связанные с различными вариантами, так или иначе, медитативных состояний, где человек просто сидит, так или иначе вегетативно, то есть неподвижно. Но все было замерено до и после, и никто не мерил в процессе. И это очень важная вещь, ее необходимо измерять очень аккуратно.
I would like to add a thing that this medicine, this kind of medicine, this is an education program. You have to remember not to forget to jog, to run, to walk. What kind of medicine would you need for that? You just read it, a small leaflet. This is education which does not undergo any kind of legislative or legal limitations. There are no regulations for that. Shall I just ask someone if she can do some kind of Chinese exercise. No?
Medical process. It's just a culture. Итак, последний вопрос.
Question, if there is any.
Хорошо.
Okay.
Can I ask the audience? Our event is coming to an end, and I would ask those who would like to express their opinion about this event, could you come up to us in front of the camera and tell us what you think of it? This would be useful both for those who spoke today and for the participants, just to have some feedback. Thank you.
I thought we were going to have a four of us discussion. It depends on them.
First of all, I would like to thank all the presenters today and the audience. And the main result that we expected today is, and that we got, that would encourage you to look at what you're doing from a different point of view. And also, when everything goes from one handbook to another, it brings to the effect that the person is not interested in anything anymore. And when there are some unexpected turns in a traditional aspect, when the traditional viewpoint is somewhat disturbed, it does not lead to rewriting books on biology. Everybody understands that they do not do it. There are scientific journals where there is some new information. When we have such collisions, people stop believing in science. And really, what we are not lacking now is the laboratories. And at present, we have serious competitions, grant works, etc. Even for there is competition for postgraduate studies, and students want to do their postgraduate research. People come from the polytechnical universities, from medical university, from medical faculty of St. Petersburg University, from the faculty of biology, etc. And the students of biology, medicine, and chemistry deal with these things. So this would encourage you to do some academic studies, to do this serious research. Due to the brain drain which still exists, we lack brains, and without harming speaking badly of our foreign colleagues, I must say that that when our students go abroad, they understand that the rigid system where we work, a financially rigid system, brings good skills, which is maybe not a big advantage of the system, but the people who went abroad, they now come back here because they want those skills they receive here. I wish you success in your scientific and academic work. Thanks a lot to the person who organized this event. From the point of view of the idea and ideology, this is Konstantin Pavlidis, because it was he who had this wonderful idea.
First, yeah.
And thanks to the organizers.
I would like to thank Max for organizing the event here. I would like to thank these great.
Thanks to
work is extremely important, really, genuinely. It's not nice words. And the whole purpose of such events, I hope and wish that through the streaming we can, and it is our intention to do this, to let the rest of the world know what's going on in science on different platforms, especially in Russia, because it's an exceptional level of knowledge and what I believe to be wisdom. No, to
Также большое спасибо
Пожалуйста,
нашим
фотограф.
спикерам, потому что
Фотограф.
это совершенно
So to the
особенный
presenters
уровень
who
профессионализма.
gave quite an exceptional level of professionalism, what we heard today, and what we were able to understand. And we hope that with the help of the live transmission, many more people will be able to join us.
Все наши операторы, водители по звуку, все те, кто встречал, провожал людей, всех тех, кто организовывал, до, после и во время. Спасибо вам большое и надеемся до новых встреч.